I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is musings. Certainly not a regular notorious POD, but I just had a great experience. I was just on a webinar hosted by Elm Street. I think I'm going to see if I could, include the link, once they release it. I know they recorded it. I believe it was a free webinar open to everybody. Yeah, it was just a great discussion. See, Chris Haran from MRed was there, Nobuhata, Liz Sturrock from Miami, me, let's see, Matt Fagioli was moderator. It was just a fun time. But one of the things, the reason why I'm doing this, I guess, is during the event, I know there were a lot of comments and sort of questions in the Q&A that frankly we didn't really get to. Just, it was a lively discussion, let's put it that way. I felt bad. Plus, one of the things that was really interesting to me was looking at some of the comments that, especially now, because I requested a transcript, the comments are really, really solid. It's kind of amazing. I feel like the audience, at least the self-selected real estate audience that attended this, like half of them are brand new and they're just excited to learn what is all this hype, what's crypto, what's blockchain, what's Web3, Metaverse, NFT, all these terms being thrown around. And like the other half are, full on degen crypto hodlers and DeFi yield farming, maniacs. There were some questions that were like, wow, these people actually really know what they're talking about. And yet there were some questions and there were some comments. And I just thought, you know what, why not? Like I got a little time right now. I'll answer some of them, at least on video. Maybe I should have done this as a live stream, but what the hell? I'm sure there'll be future, webinars, and it's not like this stuff is going anywhere. So that's what this is. This is just me, answering some questions because I felt a little bad that we didn't get to it during the panel. Obviously, I'm only speaking for me, certainly not speaking for, any of the other panelists. They might disagree with my take on things. Certainly not speaking for Elm Street. Let's just go through a couple of the more interesting ones. So first one came from a Jared Ritchie. How will NFTs change the future of title and home ownership? So I picked this one because, frankly, I personally wrote off blockchain and real estate back in 2019 when I first heard Proppy kind of present about it at a seminar at Inman. And part of it was because the focus was so much on how blockchain is going to change title. And my take on all of it then and my take on it today still remains that title is fundamentally a governmental function, right? Because when you talk about I own a home or I own this piece of land or whatever it is, that ownership is, without getting into sort of the real philosophical, discussion about ownership means, is signified by the government. Like I only own this home because the government says I own this home. Why does the government say I own this home? Because there's a piece of paper somewhere that says, my name, my wife's name, the address, parcel number, and says, okay, they own this home. So in theory, like from the very beginning, when blockchain was first introduced, literally everyone that looked at it said, this is perfect for title, right? It's immutable, unhackable, trustless, permissionless, like once it's on the chain, it's on the chain, right? And any changes is just additive to it. Like you can't delete any records, you can just add on to it. So it made perfect sense for title. It would make things so much easier. You don't have some of the problems. I think Liz was the person who brought up how it was Cook County that ran a trial, in 2016 because they were having like title fraud issues and you pay off like the county clerk and he inserts some lien that, stuff like that. Obviously, that would be impossible or at least very, very difficult in a blockchain world. So it made perfect sense. And yet it hasn't happened. Like that trial in 2016 or whenever it was done, like obviously we haven't seen that translate to, governments putting title land registry on the blockchain. Why? Because I just thought it had to do with governments not wanting to surrender that power and the money. I mean, quite frankly, that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of local jobs. Like county clerk's offices or, registrar of the deeds offices. Are they willing to give up on that? If they are, then yeah, we could have title in the blockchain tomorrow. The second part of this, though, is when you think about like ownership title, right? And this is how I thought about it back then. And I still sort of think about it this way. Okay, so you claim you own this house. Prove it. Fine. Here's a piece of paper that says I own this house. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Like somebody's squatting on your land, you have to call the sheriff. In other words, it becomes a judicial process. So at some point, some judge somewhere has to look at whatever evidence you're bringing forth saying, I own this house, I own this piece of land, and agree with you. And the question was, will the judge take whatever blockchain information, says that you own this house and consider that as proof of that ownership? Or will it be like, well, I need to see what the government says, right? So until we see some sort of judicial action, and obviously the only way to get there is by having some sort of a lawsuit, right? Where there's a dispute, you have two different records, and one of them is on the blockchain and the other one is not. And it's probably in the land registry, like county recorder's office. Is a judge really going to go, yeah, I'm going to take the blockchain info over what's written in the government, ledger? I didn't see that happening. So I think this requires probably some legislation, probably the government itself to agree to make those changes. And right now, I don't know that the interests are stacked that way. So I don't think the NFTs change title and homeownership in the near future. Now, what about the long-term future? Look, I think it will ultimately get there. The problem with long-term, especially when we talk about technology, is none of us have any freaking idea what's going to happen, next year, like never mind 10 years from now. I fundamentally don't think we as human beings are able to even contemplate what this technology, what the world is going to look like 10 years from now when things are changing this fast. So in theory, it's possible that, local governments, state governments, we have legislation passed that says, look, we're just going to put title on the blockchain and we're going to open it up. It'll be decentralized. It's conceivable. If that happens, then sure, then we're going to have instantaneous transactions. People could check validity of like title information, like in real time, just go look at the blockchain and see what it says. I think that future is probably a little bit off, a bit of a ways off. I don't think it's anything we need to worry about in the near term. So hopefully that answers the question in terms of just, that specific piece. Question 2 coming from David Sikenga, I believe that's his name. What about real estate investors, specifically short-term rentals and multifamily, using each unit as affiliate services for internet and mining, etc.? I'm not sure exactly what that question is about, but if the idea is that somehow multifamily owners will start put a mining rig in each unit to take advantage of the electric power, I don't know that I see that. I mean, Bitcoin, like any of the proof of work protocols, Ethereum today, I know they're changing to proof of stake, but Bitcoin, really being the prominent one, that's a lot of electricity. I don't think your tenants are going to just sign up to do that. Short-term rentals, I suppose, this is going to affect things somehow, right? So in the panel, I mentioned that one of the uses for NFTs that we're starting to see is having it be like a club membership card, right? So it's a different way of thinking about identity, right? So instead of it being, hey, you are a member of this golf club, so you're allowed in, then we have to know your photo ID and all this stuff, and you have to prove who you are. Instead of that, we're just going to say, look, this NFT, it proves that you have a golf membership. So you show up, we don't care what you look like, we don't care who you are. If you have the NFT, then you're a club member. Welcome to the members only section. If you don't have it, then sorry, you're not a member. So I suppose in theory, I could see like short-term rentals moving to that type of model, where instead of being like, hey, you're going to rent my Airbnb for the next 3 days, here's the gate code, here's this and that, or the other thing, you just go, here's an NFT, right? That expires after 3 days. As long as you have it, you can access the house. If you don't, then once you don't have it anymore, you can't. Like that might be a technological advance. I'm sure somebody's working on something like that. And if not, hey, here's the idea. You should go put that together. Again, same thing with multifamily. You could easily see something like this happening. Again, instead of keys, it'd have key cards that has some NFT. Yeah, it wouldn't be that difficult to imagine how that would work. All right. And then this was I don't think this was a question. I guess it's a question, but it's a really, really good comment from Adrian Abons. That was the name. Hopefully I said that correctly, Adrian. And the comment is this: many of the crypto / blockchain proponents point to the decentralized aspect of the technology. Regulation in this space is inevitable, which to me seems to kill the decentralized theory for why this is the future medium of exchange, making it no different than the existing financial system. Any thoughts? I have many thoughts. They could all be wrong, but I have numerous thoughts on this. So I don't think it's enough to talk about blockchain being decentralized. I think you have to talk about it, at least be honest about the fact that it's decentralized despite the efforts of the authorities, right? So for example, Bitcoin, which is probably the most decentralized, it's the immaculate conception. It's fully decentralized. There's no boss. There's no Satoshi Nakamoto is a fictional, or not fictional, but what I mean, like nobody knows who he is. It might not be one person. It isn't as if governments have been very friendly to Bitcoin. China's banned Bitcoin mining, just last year, and it didn't matter, right? So part of this decentralization is the fact that it's going to happen no matter what the authorities do. Like there's a very strong streak of this anti-authoritarian, anti-establishment, sort of libertarian kind of ethos within the whole blockchain world, which probably is why it appeals to me so much, because that describes me. But so do I think regulation in the space is inevitable? Yeah, of course, regulation is inevitable. I guess where I'm sitting now is most of the people who are really deep into that sort of crypto universe want some sort of regulation. They would like to have a little bit more certainty. But fact is, if that doesn't come, it isn't as if the projects are all going to die. It isn't as if they're going to go away. They're just going to migrate outside of the reach of those authorities. So for example, I think I just heard about this morning. There was a hearing in the Senate, I think just yesterday, to be honest, talking about crypto regulation. And Sam Bankman-Fried, who's like 28 and is a multi-billionaire, founder of FTX, I think he had testified something to the order of 95, like most of the technology behind blockchain was developed here in the United States, right? Continues to be developed here in the US. But something like 95% of the activity is happening outside of the United States. Why? Because our regulations blow, or there's a lack of regulation, so it's super uncertain. So yeah, I mean, I think most of the hardcore crypto people would like to see some regulation. The issue is if the regulations overstep, if they become onerous, if they become bothersome, then fact is this is all virtual, this is all technology, it's all bits and bytes and data in the cloud, if you will. Nothing stops them from saying, okay, I guess we're just going to pick up the entire multi-billion-dollar company and moving it to Estonia, or to some other jurisdiction that's going to be much friendlier, have much better regulations around this stuff. I actually think that's what we're likely to see, let's say, before the end of the decade, right? So the 2020s, which I think is going to be like had the sort of when blockchain kind of matures. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of regulation. Some of it will be really bad, and some will be good, will be decent. I think the decent ones, the crypto blockchain people will just comply because it's better, it's easier. And the ones that are bad, they'll ignore. And if it gets really bad, then they'll move to a jurisdiction where that's just not an issue. So what does that mean though for real estate? Because you could talk about like regulation not really impacting crypto and blockchain because it's all technology, it's all code. But real estate is not technology, it's not code, it's land. Right? It's physical land that is within a geography, which is most definitely under the control of whatever government, whatever state, controls that territory. I think basically it's going to come down to what the people in that area will and will not support. Right. So if the blockchain technology, if this decentralized Web3 world offers adequate benefits to everyday people, right, then it's almost like it doesn't matter what the government says or doesn't say, right? If the government is going to be real hard ass about it, then the people sort of just ignore it, and the technology will allow them to do that. As an example, federally, pot is still illegal. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, marijuana is still illegal under federal law. Here in Las Vegas, here in Nevada, it is not illegal. So it's kind of like that. Even with real estate, I think if the regulations just become stupid, if they become dumb, I think people ignore it. And they'll just go on and transact business. And I think the decentralization at that point will be seen as a real benefit, because then it becomes impossible for the government or the authorities to come and shut you down. Right? That's one of the things. So, like, as one of the guys who I think the important thing to know about blockchain is the fact that it's about decentralization, I just want to point out that it's not like decentralization with permission. Like, the whole point is decentralization without permission, without asking any government or any authority to approve. It's like, it's nice if you approve, but if you don't, if this delivers value, then we're going to do it. Like, whether you say yes or no. That's just something to keep in mind. It's kind of a radical technology. It's kind of a radical thing. All right. Let's see. I believe it will be a long time. This comes from Hank Mendez. Believe it will be a long time to actually use crypto to purchase real estate, but for now, it would be great if it can be used as a source of funds for the purchaser to use as down payment. Most lenders want the crypto converted and into their bank account in some case 6 days before they source the money. No, of course. And I think I brought up the fact that, just about every case that I'd heard of where there was a crypto purchase, because a lot of high net worth individuals, like a lot of the wealthier people now, especially if they're millennial, own crypto, and it's a big asset. They're like, okay, well, I'm tired of renting. I want to buy a place. They're going to want to buy it with crypto or using the crypto somehow. But I honestly, I just haven't heard any time recently of anyone directly buying a house with cryptocurrency, right? And I think I used as an example the Proppy's first sale in Kiev, where the buyer paid like 69 ETH. I'm like, that dude's kicking himself now, because when he bought it, ETH was at $1,000. Now ETH is like more like 4,000. You know what I mean? Like, it's too volatile, right? And I think most of the agents in the comments, kind of back that up. It's like, look, no seller is going to take crypto, or very few are. Like, even if you're a Bitcoin, maxi, even if you think Bitcoin's going to the moon, chances are you're not going to want to take Bitcoin today. Like, you're better off saying, give me dollars, and then I'll go decide how much Bitcoin to buy with the proceeds. I'm not trading my house for Bitcoin. Now, having said that, and this was something that got brought up in the chat, which says to me a lot of the people in the chat were very, very knowledgeable when they talked about when you do that. So when you have to take your Bitcoin, you convert it to, a stable coin, a USDC, a DAI, USDT. These are all cryptos that are linked, right? And they're pegged, if you will, to the value of a fiat, usually US dollar. There's euro, there's, British pound, there's Japanese yen. I think there's even like Korean won. Most of the time they'll convert to stable coin, right? And what they point out is, at least under US tax law today, that's a taxable event. You probably have to pay capital gains tax on it. So there are lots of different strategies for doing that. And this is one of the things I think maybe as an agent, you do want to go and learn a little bit, ask, people who are a little bit more knowledgeable. And there were some great strategies that were brought up. Like, one is, don't sell it, just stake it and lever it. Meaning, you go deposit your Bitcoin as collateral. There are a number of companies. I don't want to call them banks. I don't know, but like Celsius or Nexo, that are two that I'm aware of. I think in Canada you have Ledin. There are a bunch of these guys, right? Where you go deposit your Bitcoin as collateral and you take out a loan in fiat, right? Because that loan then it's not taxable. It's a loan. You have to repay it. It's not considered income. That's what some of the wealthier sort of Bitcoin and Ethereum hodlers tend to do, right? They just, okay, cool, I'm going to do a crypto loan. What that means, though, is this kind of got brought up in some discussion around so-called crypto loans or crypto mortgage. As yet, I haven't seen anything that I would consider to be a true crypto mortgage. What I've seen instead is essentially a crypto loan, right? So you deposit cryptocurrency, you borrow fiat, combined with some sort of a traditional mortgage process in which the lender on your crypto will then give you a better rate because they're going to take a lien position, on your traditional mortgage. If you want to call that a crypto mortgage, sure, I guess. I just don't see it that way. And in fact, this is one of the projects that I'm actively working on, is trying to figure out what the future of that might look like. And even I'm, as a proponent, as a huge, homer, I don't think we're going to see that for, I don't know, 5 years. And that's being like early. It's probably more like 10, maybe never. Who knows? It's going to take a while. All right. So yeah, could it be used as a source of funds? Look, that's really up to the lender. I mean, I could easily see some, hard money lender, maybe someone who's not regulated. And again, if regulations update, this could change, where, they'll just say, okay, well, you've got whatever, 50 Bitcoin, in your wallet. That's a pretty good asset. We think you're good for this loan. We'll see. We'll see. To me, that just feels like a crypto-backed loan. Doesn't really feel like a crypto mortgage, but that's a whole, maybe it's a semantic discussion. All right. There's a question from Christine Fluke. Will we need a soft and hard wallet to collect commission? I think this is in terms of like, if the transaction is done in crypto, how will the agent get paid? I don't think this matters that much, but I wanted to answer this because just real quick, like I'm assuming what she meant by hard wallet versus soft wallet is cold storage versus hot wallets. So basically the idea is cold storage wallets are not connected to internet, right? So they're, things like this, right? Which is a hardware device. This is my ledger. It's not connected to the internet, so you can't get hacked really, right? Until I connect it. Sort of the hot wallets, which are already always connected. So these would be your, you control it. It's your wallet. So these would be your MetaMasks. This might be your Coinbase, I think, has a wallet. There are a bunch of them out there. Some of them are really good, but they're, software wallets. So they're always connected to the internet. So in theory, it's easier for them to get hacked. I don't think it matters cold or hot wallet. I think it's just, do you have a wallet that will take coins? Look, I suppose if the brokerage, if the whole transaction, title, escrow, I don't think any of those guys set up for that today. It's going to happen, right? It's just a matter of time. And then you just have to decide how do you want to get paid. My consulting work, I've already have it out there since last year that I will actually discount my fees if somebody decides to pay me in crypto, because I have wallets and I'm happy to take it. So I wanted to answer it just because it's not a soft or hard. It's more like hot or cold, right? And it just refers to, are you connected to the internet or not? All right, and the next request is AJ Guzman. Can we touch on how DAOs might apply to the future of brokerages and potentially software/CRM subscriptions? So I wanted to talk about this because I mentioned DAOs, or it was Matt mentioned DAOs. Matt Fagioli brought that up, and I have tons of opinions on DAOs and something that I'm investigating very, very actively. So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and it's hard to describe what it is, but for all intents and purposes, we'll just call it like a self-governed, self-owned new type of organization, right? Where you could think of it like a company with lots of shareholders, but instead of shares, they would have these tokens, these governance tokens, and because of their tokens, it's all on the internet. It's on Web3. It's in the blockchain. You can make decisions by voting your tokens. So it's almost like an exercise in Athenian democracy, right? Like way back in the day, pre-republic, you don't have representatives. Literally every single person, if you have a governance token, you can vote. So I've done that. Like I've owned some governance tokens on Sushi. I've owned some Aave tokens, so like I'll go vote on, some proposal, right? How that applies to future of brokerages, I'm not sure, because brokerages are still companies. What I brought up was I think this could have an impact on associations and MLSs, which are membership organizations. And this is sort of what I brought up, during the panel, is it's not immediately obvious to me that in the post sort of blockchain world, so once this becomes much more commonplace, say, 5 to 10 years out, and everyone knows what a DAO is, everybody has governance tokens, I think a lot of these so-called membership organizations could really transition into being a DAO. I'll give you a couple examples, right? One is really relevant to our world. It's the one example I brought up, which is NAR. Like NAR has 900 some odd boards of directors. Why? If NAR had governance tokens instead, every single one of the 1.5 million members could just cast their votes on whatever action. Right? I mean, that could happen. Today, that's unwieldy. Today, that's impossible to even think of. Like in the DAO world, if you give a crap, you can go read the proposals and you can vote. You could make proposals. It's like a direct democracy move. So where does that apply? I mean, obviously, realtor associations, MLSs, but I think about like homeowner associations. Like in the DAO age, I don't know why HOAs exist, right? And since many of you, being realtors, you know how much of a pain in the ass that is. Could you imagine? Like, why do you need an HOA? Why do you need, a bunch of I don't know, annoying folks telling you like what color, to paint your garage or whatever? Like, just make it a DAO, and every homeowner votes their token, and that's that. Condo associations, I think those are places where I would look at innovation behind this DAO, behind how that's going to work. Let's see. Tracy Johnson had a couple questions. What if the blockchain database goes down? Facebook and Instagram has gone down and panic set in. I wanted to answer this because this is actually a really, really important point, right? Because I think what's happened since blockchain has gotten so hyped up is people just kind of equate blockchain to database, right? It's just a new type of database. And people say things like, look, blockchain today is, cumbersome, expensive. I brought that up. But, technology is getting better and better and better. I'm like, look, that's true. But let's understand what is meant by blockchain, what is meant by distributed ledgers, what is meant by this. What it means is there's no server, fundamentally, right? So like Facebook and Instagram, they have servers. Now, granted, they probably have thousands of servers, probably at Amazon Web Services or their own cloud, or, they have like many dozens, I don't know, of data centers, all with, but even so, it's a single company that have a discrete set of servers. It can be attacked and it can go down. What's cool about blockchain is it basically has potentially thousands of servers, right? That has all of the info, all separately. So it can't actually go down. Bitcoin, I think, has the most distributed sort of network, and it's impossible. It's basically impossible to bring Bitcoin down. It's basically impossible to bring that network down because you're talking about having to attack something like tens of thousands of computers all throughout the world. I mean, is it possible? I suppose, like ginormous nuclear, explosions in the atmosphere. But short of like some world-ending disaster, right? You cannot actually bring a blockchain database down. Now, there could be things. So, for example, Solana has had some outages. A lot of it has to do with software not being able to scale fast enough. It happens. But fact is, like, no blockchain that I'm aware of has ever been hacked. It's never been compromised. And it doesn't ever really go down. That's the whole promise of this sort of distributed ledger with all the nodes. And it's just, it's nearly impossible to bring down. But I wanted to bring that up because it's important just to understand when we talk about blockchain, because we're going to hear this from various different companies. And especially, I think, in real estate, we're going to hear this first is in what most people refer to as sort of the permissioned private blockchain, right? Where it's not a public blockchain with thousands and thousands of nodes. It's more like one company that has blockchain, but it's private. So they control it. They own it. They control it. And the number of servers, number of nodes is however many they decide to use. And the example, I think the best example of that is Toronto, TREB, the Toronto Real Estate Board. In their MLS, they're building a blockchain-based system, but it's a private blockchain. I think it's built on IBM Hyperledger, which means they will dictate how many servers that will be. For redundancy purpose, maybe they'll have a dozen, right? Which is cool, but it's not thousands, right? It's all dozen that's controlled by TREB, which means that, let's say, the province of Ontario decided to shut TREB down for some reason. They issue an order to one company, shut your servers down, and you shut your servers down. there goes, that's the pros and cons, right? The pro is obviously it's not as expensive, it's not as costly, and it's much more efficient. That's just one of the trade-offs, I think. It's a way to think about it. All right. I think those are the main questions that I saw that I thought were worth addressing. There were some comments as well in the chat that I thought were super interesting. I just thought it'd be cool to talk about. Okay. One is, I think, a lot of the conversations around, borrow against crypto. We've already discussed that. Crypto-based loans they exist, they're used, they're effective. It makes perfect sense if you have a lot of crypto and not a whole lot of anything else. One comment here was talking about using crypto to buy and sell houses, and how most people are just converting that to dollars, whether that's actual fiat USD in the bank or converting to a stable coin. And the comment was, if the US dollar dies, then people will buy homes in crypto. This is true. If the US dollar dies, the next comment was, if the US dollar dies, we won't be transacting much anyway. I don't think that's entirely true, because you could see a way, where we're, as a country, we're not going to just like cease existing, but the US dollar could stop being the reserve currency. And you could see a scenario where the US dollar just hyperinflates and just becomes really worthless. This is why all the gold bugs are, buying gold bullion, and why the Bitcoin people are buying Bitcoin. You could see something like that happening at some point. I suspect that if some event were like to come to pass, we're probably going to see it coming years in advance. And I think what kind of sucks is that we're not as far away from that event as one might hope, because they just, like, I think it was today, maybe yesterday, the Fed released January inflation numbers, and the headline inflation is 7.5%. Most of the people that I follow, myself included, we don't think that's real. We think the real number is probably closer to 15%. At some point, we get into hyperinflation levels, and the dollar is just like, who the hell wants to take dollars? In that type of scenario, I could see homeowners saying, yeah, I don't want dollars. Don't give me dollars. What am I going to do with dollars, right? In other words, like, by the time I walk out of the escrow office, it's going to be worth 30% less. I'm not taking that. Give me gold. Give me, Bitcoin. Give me your collectible Mustang, right? You know what I mean? Like, we could see something like that happening. I'd be real curious. And again, I don't know, because I just personally have no exposure to it. But it would be interesting to sort of find out, some of the people who might have contacts in, let's say, Venezuela, right, where the currency is worthless, maybe Argentina, and just ask, okay, what happens? Like, how do people buy and sell real estate when the currency collapses? And I think we're going to have a lot more insight into what might happen in terms of crypto usage in real estate transactions. Because look, fundamentally, money is just a tool, right? It's just a tool to allow us to exchange one thing for another. So, whatever that is, whether that's, beads or shells or Bitcoin or US dollar or euro or whatever it is, it's just a medium of exchange. All right, let's see. And this is a comment by Marty Walsh. The other side of my ETH value change isn't really about ETH being worth more. It's that the fiat dollar is being devalued. Absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree. This has been a thesis of mine from the beginning of the pandemic, when home prices started doing this. I mean, I think I'm on record saying I don't think home prices have gone up. I think the dollar's devalued. So I don't think we're ever going to like a buyer's market again, as a result of that, because I don't think it's the homes have gone up. I think the dollar has gone down. But that's half a dozen, 6 of one, half dozen the other kind of quote argument. Let's see. Okay, we're talking about Milo, collabs at crypto. Yeah, I mean, we talked about crypto mortgage. It doesn't really exist yet. Let's see. And here's Daniel Krause with a comment. It's a really good point. Most of the buzz around Web3 misses that nearly all the projects which claim to be decentralized have a high degree of centralized control of the tokens, code, and development. Very few projects are actually decentralized. He's absolutely right. He's 100% right. I think, in fact, right now, just my opinion, just my personal opinion, the only truly decentralized project in all of crypto, all of DeFi, all of everything is Bitcoin itself, right? Ethereum, you have Vitalik. You have an individual, the founder, who is enormously influential. Solana is well known for being like 50% of the tokens are controlled by the VCs and insiders. It's pretty centralized. Having said that, that's today, right? Like this is really new. I mean, Bitcoin is a teenager. I think it's 13 years old. Some of these newer projects are even younger. We're at the very, very first stages of this development. And the ethos of that community is towards decentralization. I can't remember the name of the company right now, but there's one company that started out as a company with VC backing, get very successful, and is in the process of converting into a DAO, a fully decentralized, with DAO governance and everything being sort of driven by community. I think we're going to see more and more of that as time goes on, as some of these companies get bigger. Some of the investors, some of the insiders, have essentially reaped their rewards. I think the ethos will drive it towards greater decentralization. But I agree with Daniel 100%. Right now, today, most of these projects are highly, highly centralized. And I think that most of the true believers, if you will, in the blockchain crypto world would consider that a real weakness. All right. All right, let's see. Title. All right, so this was a big topic. You don't need agents in a decentralized world. Okay, I don't believe that's true. Now, having said that, I think I'm the one who said on the panel that we just have to question what it's going to look like. Because to me, blockchain, all of this technology, Web3, all of this, fundamentally is about eliminating gatekeepers, eliminating middlemen. So to the extent that agents are middlemen and gatekeepers, yeah, I think those are going to go away. But to the extent that agents are advisors, I think they're going to be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than they are like even today, right? I'm trying to give an example, right? So I spent 2021 doing a whole lot of degenerate DeFi gambling, all kinds of yield farming, because I wanted to learn about this. I wanted to learn what's the big deal with decentralized finance. So here's the thing, and I think everyone should do this. I actually think if you're interested in this topic, go get some Ethereum, go get some crypto. There don't have to be a lot of money or anything, and go engage in DeFi lending. All right. So Aave is the protocol that I'm most familiar with. Where you go on Aave, you deposit Ethereum and you borrow some other coin. You borrow Bitcoin, you borrow, USDC, whatever, right? What you find is the entire thing is automated. It's more like a vending machine, right, than getting a loan. Like you go deposit, you click a couple of buttons, you approve, you pay the gas fee, and boom, there's your loan. It feels like a vending machine. So the gatekeeper aspect of a lender is gone, right? Same thing with DeFi. If I want to go, I see some lending pool. I'm like, wow, look at that. It's whatever, 300% APR. Sounds good. I could just go deposit, money into it and start getting yield on that thing, and no human being is involved. Here's the thing. Just because you could doesn't mean you should. So yeah, I mean, I've lost my ass, investing in some of these protocols, right? I didn't need anyone. There was no gatekeeper. It's not like a stock market where I have to call a broker, I have to go to E-Trade and then, place a trade. It's not like that. I just immediately go deposit and it happens. So there are no gatekeepers. There's no middleman. However, I sure could have used some advice from somebody who really does know, DeFi lending, who knows yield farming. It's like, hey, Rob, that particular pool you might want to think about, maybe not, or timing it. So, yeah, put money in now, but in 3 days you need to, to get out. That sort of advice is invaluable, right? And I think the same thing's going to happen with real estate agents. Even if everything gets blockchain, everything is decentralized, titles on chain and all that stuff. Okay, so a home seller could list their home, NFT on OpenSea or whatever and sell it to some buyer for whatever price. It doesn't change the fact that the gatekeeper function might be gone. But you still want somebody to tell you, is this a decent price? You still want somebody to tell you, should I buy this home? I don't think that's going to go away. So all the local expertise, all the things that are truly of value that realtors provide today, I don't think any of that goes away. It's just different, right? And it's just that adaptation. I don't think we're that close to it. I think we're probably 3 to 5 years out. But having said that, if you think about it, 3 to 5 years out is not 30 years out, right? So I don't know. I guess if you're a realtor and you're at the end of your career, and you're going, I'm going to retire next year, then you probably don't need to care about this in one bit. But if you're 30 years old, you probably want to care about this because this is going to happen during your career, as a real estate agent, right? Let's see. Where's the line between brokering real estate properties and securities? The line is called the SEC and securities law. So I would not mess with that. Teresa Grobecker actually has a whole series about this and saying you need to be real careful. And I agree with her. Like, there's a line, and it's the securities laws. So let's see. Sean Brawley, in a decentralized world of real estate, who is responsible for data accuracy? It's a great question. And I think the answer is, in a truly decentralized world, the community is responsible for data accuracy. Right? Just like in a fully decentralized finance world, like Aave Sushi, whatever, the community is responsible, right? And the individual is responsible. If you lose your keys and you get your wallet taken out, hey, you got no one to go appeal to. No one's going to refund you your money. Like, you've lost your money and that's the end of it. Keep your password safe. That's the downside. If somebody defrauds your money, there's no getting it back, right? On the other hand, there are no gatekeepers either. So it's that. All right. Let's see. Web 1, read online. Web 2, social media. Web 3, a version of the internet that is owned by the people who use it and build it. Andrew Quiroga. I think I said that right. Exactly right. The only other thing I might add on to that is Web 3 has this idea of the ability to transfer economic value over the internet, right? On social media, on Web 2, we can't really do that. We can exchange information, right? Sometimes very sophisticated information, XML files and APIs and all of that, but there's no way of transferring actual monetary value, right? Well, Web 3, I think, is built on top of sort of a cryptocurrency infrastructure, which means you do have an ability to transfer value over the internet. That's what the banks are terrified of. That's what the governments are worried about. That's what they want to regulate. But I think that is one of the things that it does set Web 3 apart from Web 2. It's not just information. It's not just data. It's actual value that is going to get transferred. And that's going to be real interesting to see, what happens. All right. I think those are all of the comments and questions. I know this wasn't necessarily like focused, but like I said, just had the panel, had a great time. It was a wonderful panel. I was super impressed by the quality of the questions, super impressed by the chat. It occurs to me that something's going on in the real estate industry. Something's going on with realtors out there. Y'all are way smarter on this than most people might think. And I really appreciated some of these things. And yeah, and I just wanted to kind of give you my take on it. If you have your own thoughts, if you have your own, or want to say, hey, Rob, you're completely wrong about whatever, Web3 or Metaverse, like, let me know. I'm happy to have that discussion and debate and learn from you all as well. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Later.